Dallas has just been on a tear. I believe we can attribute that to Jason Robertson. Also, Jake Ottinger, who's really stepped in.
Yeah, so we can compare a rookie QB to a toddler. Hayward's absence for this game will be significant, and I wouldn't be surprised if this game turns into a blowout as of late.
The Golden Knights just can't pull it. I really think the Avalanche are determined this year.
They made so many moves and grabbed so many guys that they have to win a championship or at least make the finals. They were on our championship and bust.
The same self, the only year he won an MVP was the year he cheated, which really should put something against that MVP. But
yeah, and as a Cowboys fan, I have learned how dangerously good Aaron Rodgers has been with he can just thread a pass.
Hello, I am Ruby Ackerman, and you are listening to Outsider's Opinion with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NHL Opinions of the Week. I'm Kevin, and I'm joined by the man who had a very different reaction when Tkachuk was announced to me, Austin.
Yeah, I didn't hear yours before, but you heard mine, so I guess you can kind of set it up differently. But my reaction was the series was over. I didn't really even care to watch the last game 5, and I've watched some majority of the games in the playoffs. I just decided to ignore it.
So here's how I went through it. I was like, I feel Vegas is still going to win the series, but I don't know if they finish it tonight. Because Tkachuk is a better player and more important to the Panthers than I think Jamie Benn was to the Stars.
Yeah, it does really bring up the fact that the Stars were expected winners in I think 5 out of the 6 games that series, and
really?
The fact that in 5 out of the 6 games the Stars should have won by expected goals at least.
Okay, expected goals. I thought it was like predictions. People were like predicting.
Oh no! Like the actual stats say you got that's the whole luck thing coming in.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Because the Stars should have won game 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then lost game 6.
Okay. Yeah. So I thought there was going to be one, and we had seen in the Star Series Vegas struggle to finish a team. They did finish the Stars and do just more than win the game. They beat the Stars very soundly. But I thought they would struggle to finish the series because I'm like, Panthers going to probably fight back and win at least one. I don't know if it goes farther, and then Tkachuk is back. But yeah, the way it went down, I probably turned it off after like the 4th goal when it was 4-1. I was like, yeah, this isn't.
I don't know why this. It just felt weird. This both series, NBA and NHL, it just felt weird. It didn't feel like a 2-team contest, like at all. And I've seen sweeps in the NHL that are extremely close, and they're a dogfight. But with Florida, they just took themselves out with penalties so many times, and bad decisions were made that I don't know if it was coaching errors and then injuries happened. Ekblad was apparently dealing with multiple broken stuff. It was just everything caught up to them. And this is where I was texting one of the guys we know. This was easily the best Stars chance since they've won a title. And I know the other one they made the Stanley Cup final, but they were the better team every game except for game 6. And the fact that they just couldn't get over the hump in one of those first 2. If they win one,
first 2, it's a completely different game. Completely different series. But yeah, I totally. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
Game 3. Okay. Game 3, Vegas did not play well. Ben just got a huge penalty. It was Ottinger had one of the worst games of his life, and Ben decided to be stupid.
Which was a reaction to game 2. I feel like they were down 2-0, and Ben wanted to start something, and then it led to a very bad penalty. But I also thought the thing that's I didn't mean to make this for it to turn into a Star discussion, but the past 4 Stanley Cup champions, or is it 5? or no, it's 4. Because 2019, the Blues win, where the Stars went Game 7, did not show up for Game 7. 2020 lost in the Stanley Cup final. So that's
And
2
here's
times.
a big thing. And look, this was not a penalty if you watch the game. But Game 4, the most pivotal game in the series, was Game 4. They go to overtime. The Stars are close. And then Jamie Benn commits a tripping penalty. In Game 4, he committed a tripping penalty, and they Tampa ends up scoring on that tripping penalty in overtime. Now, I don't think it was a penalty. Basically, Tampa tripped over himself.
Wait, Game 4?
Game 4, overtime. Stars down 2-1 in the series. Stars need to win this game.
Wait, Stars down 2-1 in the series. You're saying Game 4?
Yep. That's how Game 4 works, because you're down 2-1, and then Game 4 happens.
But they were down 3-1.
That's Game 5.
No,
okay,
but
when it's 0-0, you play Game 1. When it's 1-0, you play Game 2.
No, but the Stars were down 3-0.
I'm talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning Stanley Cup.
Okay.
And they were down 2-1.
Oh, okay.
And
I thought you were talking about Vegas. I thought you were talking about Vegas.
Yeah, in Game 4 of overtime, Jamie Benn committed a tripping penalty. Now, it shouldn't have been a tripping penalty. It was a terrible call by the refs.
Oh, yeah, it was a terrible call. But, yeah.
But I do think there's some connection there between the fact that Jamie Benn committed the penalty that costed them a title in both 2020 and 2023.
Okay. I get what you're saying. I was totally lost because I thought you were talking about Vegas. And I was like, they weren't down 2-1. But yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. But to me, when I saw Vegas, they got past the Stars and they struggled to put down, or no, I won't say put, but to finish the Stars and finish the series, which they didn't do here. With Tkachuk out, even though at the beginning it seemed like Florida was on it, and then Vegas kind of took over, and I was surprised. How do you feel about the Conn Smythe winner?
Oh, I think it was the right choice. Marchessault was definitely the best. I thought it was easily. Jack Eichel didn't score enough goals, and normally when there's 1 point of difference, Marchessault was the better player throughout the postseason. Okay. They made the right choice.
Okay, my argument was Aiden Hill.
Hill didn't play enough games. He didn't play the entire first round.
Okay,
You could, but I just feel like it's weird to give to a guy that missed an entire round when he wasn't the main reason why they won, in my opinion. Like, he was very, very good, but it would have to be historic. It would literally have to be a Pavelski situation. That would be the only guy that if they ended up winning the title and he kept on scoring goals and everything else happened correctly, that I would entertain. But I do find it very interesting that the winner in points was Jack Eichel with 26, and then Marchessault with 25, and then Rope Hansen, some other guys at 24.
Yeah. So I was going to argue for Hill, but yeah, you make a great point. He didn't play in the first round because to me, I thought he was incredible in this series and really, he really stepped up his pay for next year. I don't know where he goes, and then Marchessault, it's a great story just because he was left off the Panthers. He was drafted by the Vegas Golden Knights to the Panthers.
Yeah,
from the Panthers.
The thing is, you can only cover so many people. It's not like they deliberately chose, we don't want you. I understand why they do that to like get the team reinvigorated. Like, hey, this team didn't even want you. But it's not that they didn't want you. It's that like if a team is extremely, extremely good, they can't keep everybody.
It's difficult though because he had a 30-goal season. And then was left off, and but it's still, and then Jack Eichel, of course, even though you mentioned he led points, it seemed, and I heard this before, and I'm sure you did too, it showed, and the Vegas did achieve their 6-year goal. What Vegas had done because there are only 3 guys left on the original team, from the original team that went to the Stanley Cup final, just changing this, firing coach after coach, it worked. They got their goal in trading for Jack Eichel.
Yes and no. It obviously works, but the reason why I'm saying yes and no is because they didn't have to they signed coaches that probably shouldn't have even been on the market anyway. Like Peter DeBoer made a Western Conference final before he came to Vegas. Bruce Cassidy had already made a finals a couple years ago and had never missed the playoffs before with Boston. Like the NHL is extremely weird when it comes to firing coaches. So,
But would you have fired DeBoer after last year?
no, because
To
there's
me,
so
Vegas,
many.
yeah,
You
seemed
know,
to
you know.
have such a short leash.
Well, here's the thing. Why I don't fire DeBoer is the same reason why I wouldn't fire Monty Williams. You make a big trade for Jack Eichel in the middle of the year in no time to adjust.
Yeah. And so I think if they didn't win the cup, it's probably questionable. And if they don't do as well as they did, because the year before, they went to the Western Conference Finals, or they lose? Or
Yeah,
am
they
I
lost the
thinking-
Western Conference Finals to Montreal, and then missed the playoffs, and then won the Stanley Cup.
So, and DeBoer was part of the. He was the coach when they lost to the Stars in the conference final. And so he
Yes.
had back to back Western Conference Finals appearances and didn't make the playoffs, but they had made a big trade in. I think it was like in a historic year where everyone was injured on the Golden Knights.
You talking about back in against the Stars or 2021?
I'm talking about last year when they missed the playoffs.
Oh
Wasn't
yeah, there
they
was a
just
lot
had
of injuries. I mean, this
yeah.
year there was a good bit of injuries too, but everybody got healthy for the playoffs. There was no injuries come playoff time.
So you're firing a guy where you had a very injury plagued season. You made a big trade, and the 2 years before you've been to a Western Conference Finals. But then they did get Bruce Cassidy, and he got them the cup, which is he was a great coach. I'm just saying. And then when did who did they fire before DeBoer? Was it Gallant?
I think so.
It just seemed like they were very quick with, you're not doing what we want, when they had pretty good results with their coaches, and they're like, we're firing you.
That's what I do think. It also feels weird is while there is good amount of homegrown talent per se, Vegas did not do this like I've ever seen it be done ever, and it was Gallant. So it was the Gallant, Gallant, DeBoer, and then Cassidy.
And they had gone to the final in Gallant's first year.
Yeah, and he only
Still-
survived two and a half years. Like halfway through his third year, he was fired.
Okay, wow. So that's just something that sticks out to me. Of they were very quick, and like you said, they made tons of trades. They traded for Mark Stone, and the trades, it all worked out because they won the cup. And to me, they just seemed ready. And then and the improbable thing is, Aiden Hill kind of came out of nowhere in the second round, and to me, he was incredible in the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and I think this may bring a new era of teams. This Vegas championship was very similar to what I think the LA Rams championship was,
Okay.
and it was because we'd never seen a Rams or never seen a team give up on draft
That much.
Yeah, and Vegas has given up or cut. They've done so much as well that's so different than everybody else that I do think we may see a new approach by teams.
And I think that's a good comparison. And but yeah, it was a weird series. There were just so many out. The only good game was probably Game 3.
For Florida, it was more Game 3 and 4, right? Because Game 4 almost went to overtime.
Yeah, Game 4 almost went to overtime. Yeah, Game 3 and 4, they were close. But yeah, Game 2 was the ridiculous. Game 1 was sort of close, and like you can understand that, but just Game 2 and Game 5 really stick out to me because Vegas just outscored Florida.
And I do think a big part of that, there being only 2 games that were necessarily close, is the penalties that we saw. Whether it was bad discipline or otherwise, it really did cost Florida a competitive series because Vegas is bad on the power play. But if you give them a crazy amount, they're going to capitalize.
Yeah, and I think Vegas also, they just seem to stay in the zone a lot for Florida. And then later on, it just seemed there were a lot of odd man rushes because the Mark Stone goal in game 5 was just, it was an odd man rush, and they had lost the puck in the Vegas zone. And then you have the weird change in game 4. Yeah, game 4. Where
Yeah.
Stevenson gets a 1-on-1 with the goalie.
Yeah, and again, everything just seemed to nothing. The Panthers' run to this point was extremely magical, but it seemed like even from game 1 on, the magic was lost.
Yeah, and to me, Vegas almost seemed magical, but the funny thing is they were number 1 in the West. But it just seemed they're on their like 4th goalie or their 3rd goalie, and he plays incredible in the second round, and then really steps up, and he made some great saves.
Yeah,
Sure.
he did, and I do think it's both of these goalies had an incredible run. No one really expected the resurgence of Bobrovsky, who didn't even start the first game of the playoffs for Florida, and then obviously Aiden Hill, because of poor performance and a little bit of injuries like Logan Boursois, he obviously played better than I think they were expecting from any goaltender overall. So we saw a good goaltending matchup, but then again, 9 goals were scored in game 5.
Yeah, and I think it was just Vegas did a lot well getting to the top corner and kind of blocking Bobrovsky's vision.
Yeah, but
And
I
he
mean,
also didn't play to an incredible level, but I don't think
he could have been
terrible.
he could have been better.
Okay.
So seeing, I just saw a lot of players did not play as well as I would have anticipated.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was good for Vegas. And we'll review our predictions, but um, let's talk about the future. Do you think we see what happens to the Rams with the Vegas?
It's not long term sustainable, so maybe in 2 to 3 years. But I do think their players are good enough and young enough that it won't happen yet. But to do with injury prone players, and we have to see how Aiden Hill or anyone else who's their goaltender plays next year. I do think we see a regress, but I would still assume they make the playoffs next year, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Yeah, to me, they have a young star player in Eichel, and they also have some really good players who are.
The problem is Eichel had neck surgery, and that's not normally
Yeah.
something that you can continue. It seems like something that's easy to re-aggravate.
Yeah, so we'll have to see. But yeah, the goalie situation is interesting. Well, opposed to the Panthers, they have that young guy Kachuk, and the problem was he broke his sternum. So, and I'm interested in how they do the goalies for next year. But to me, this may kickstart something better because it seems like they have a younger core and a longer term future.
I think goaltender could be a problem though, because, like I said, no one expected what happened this year to happen. So can that be carried over to next year?
But the year before, they were the best team in the NHL.
That's true, but they almost missed the playoffs this year. That kind of shows like year to year, it could be very, very different, and we'll have to see how Tkachuk recovers from a broken sternum. Which, I mean, I don't think he's even able to breathe all that well because I mean the sternum's right there in the middle of the chest. It definitely does not lend itself to a good break.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Very interested in how what these two teams do in free agency.
Yeah,
Like, do the Vegas re-sign Aiden Hill, or what does Florida do with their goalie situation?
True. I mean, are they going to bring back some of the guys that they've had before, or are they going to trust that Bob is back?
Yeah. So we'll keep you updated on that. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.